Now we have arrived at our first topic, scaling and new markets, and I'd like to point out to all our speakers that I'll be sitting in the corner right there, giving you the inclination when 5 minutes are left of the lectures, and when 1 minute is left, I'll be waving this beautiful picture of Bala himself right there. Nothing to do with that, yes. But our first speaker is Mr. Hjálmar Gislason, Vice President of Data at Qlik, and Mr. Gislason founded the data market company in 2008, which merged with Qlik in 2015. And he's a self-confessed data nerd, and he will inform us about going from scaling a startup to scaling a product to a listed company. There you go, sir.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Bala asked me to talk a little bit about kind of the difference of working for a publicly traded U.S. company and an Icelandic startup. There are quite a few differences, and I'll try to portray a few of them. One of the first things I will actually say is that for the first time in my life, so my philosophy in starting companies and actually more and more so over time has been to be very open about everything I'm doing. I believe that the more open you are as you're trying to start something up, the more likely you are to succeed. The fear that people will come and steal your ideas is unfounded completely, because if people are so inclined that they are willing to take a big chunk of their life to try to build something up, they will go for ideas of their own. And the more people that know about your ideas, the more likely you are actually in succeeding and getting them out there in the world and making them successful. So the more people you tell about what you're doing, the better it goes. That said, when you're a publicly traded company on a U.S. market or in any market, in fact, there are certain limitations to what you can say. So for the first time in my life, I have to be a little bit conservative about what I tell you. So I'll try to paint the general picture. If you read something between the lines, it's completely your interpretation. From scaling a startup to scaling a product, and let's see if this works. Yes. So what I'm going to tell you about here is the journey of data market. I'll just briefly, because there are some of you here that don't know anything about that story, just a little bit about what we did and what that was about, and then joining Qlik about 20 months ago now. Qlik is originally Swedish BI company acquired data market. What Data Market did was essentially we were gathering quantitative information and making them more accessible for people that need those information in their business lives. So data from the likes of market research companies and statistics offices, international organizations such as the UN and IMF and so on, aggregating all of that in a single solution where it was really easy to search for the data that you were looking for, visualize it, and then get it into whatever system you needed to use that information in if you needed to do some further work with that. So that's what Data Market did. We were started here in 2008. We can say we started our work in 2009, and we had a product in 2011. So as soon as we had a product, we decided that it was time. The way to scale that out was for me to move closer to the potential buyers. So we started looking into, basically just took a look at our list of contacts and prospects. We found 3 aggregations of those. They were in London, they were in New York, and they were in Boston. Because Boston and New York aren't that far from each other, we decided on the east coast of the US. I'd actually set up an office in New York. But then we landed 2 deals in Boston in a very short amount of time in the first months of 2012. So we quickly kind of shifted way and decided to set up in Boston. And I'll just very briefly kind of tell you. I'll tell you briefly the story of Data Market. So I decided to kind of just take a few Facebook posts from this time. So this is me late 2011. We'd already set up, and the question there in Icelandic is are these the next headquarters of Data Market? So this is Cambridge Innovation Center in Kendall Square in Cambridge, which is in the Boston area, right at the end of the MIT campus. And we actually decided not to go for that, but go for another office just on the street. So this is where we set up our first office, and Mind you, we just had a very small room on one floor of the nice building there. So we I actually made it to the White House, where I gave a speech on what we were doing in terms of energy data in particular. We hired some salespeople. There we go. And they were working the phones quite hard. And gradually over time, this is me extending my visa application. Quite a lot of bureaucracy. And then we actually moved into the financial district. So we had this beautiful office in a brown brick building in the financial district, where we set up office and kind of let the startup live there. And then we started selling. So this is a contract. It's blurred by. Well, there's no accident, it's blurred a little bit, but this was the biggest contract we made, a sale of about 4.2 million of our system. And then soon after that, we got acquired. So very kind of, it was a very smooth ride, completely smooth. No, I'm joking. So the things to kind of, well, I'll come back to some of these things, but this is just very quickly to give you a little bit of an idea of kind of our journey while we were still an independent company in Iceland. So I was there. We hired a few people in the Boston area to set up the sales and marketing operations, but all of our development was in Iceland. A little bit then about Qlik, just to kind of give you a little bit of an insight in that. It is quite different from what we were. So Qlik is a leader in what's called visual analytics or data discovery. We are in a category with, in some circles, better known companies like Tableau, for example. Tableau kind of being the in that same kind of product category. We have about 5 to 6% market share in the business intelligence market, which is a market of $15 to $16 billion worldwide. Almost 40,000 customers, and the company is on its way to just over $700 million in revenue this year. That's the target, that's the guidance that we've given the market. And today, about 2,600 employees in 50, I believe, in 50 countries across the world. So it's quite different from what we have. So the kind of contrasting these two things, I decided I'll give you 4 observations that I've taken away from this. From comparing these two. So the first one is about scale. So scaling at scale is very different. So what I do now, I'm the VP of data, so which is in the product management side of things. I report to the CTO. There are 3 of us that kind of head up the product management, and I head up all of our data efforts. So essentially anything that happens in our product before people start to visualize and analyze the data they're working with is on my plate. How they get the data into the systems, how they transform the data so that they can work with it, and so on. This is my thing. We went from being, again, 15 people, mostly in Iceland. We had revenue in the low single-digit millions of dollars, and we were growing at a rate of about 100% a year. Going from this to, I should say, we had not yet, even though we were fairly successful and growing at a fairly good rate, we still hadn't found our repeatable model. We hadn't found the thing that we could take and sell over and over again. So there were quite a lot of customizations for every customer. We were still kind of seeking for the really highly scalable model, even though I think we were making good strides to get there. At the same time, when we joined Qlik, they're turning over about $550 million. They have 2,000 people and they're growing at a rate of 20%. And these two things are completely different. And they've been successfully selling the same thing for about 15 years when we joined them. Originally started out of Sweden, moved there from there to the US, took in some relatively small investment in 2003, and basically then used that to grow for the next decade before they IPO'd in 2011. So fairly cool story. And I think that what I'll say is that the seeking for the scalable model is a very expensive thing. And one of the things that I've taken from our journey there is that even though in the short run, everybody likes the money, but in the short run, going too far from what you're trying to achieve just for the money is usually not the right thing to do. You can obviously pivot and you can change and direct the things that you're doing, but if you find yourself moving too far for a single customer or for a for a single opportunity, too far from your vision, make sure that you change your vision. Make sure that you actually believe that this is something that will take you somewhere, and you don't get stuck in just doing things for that one customer, taking time and energy away from the longer term goal. I will also tell you another thing. The guy that from corporate development at Qlik that headed this up, he worked at IBM before, and talk about scale. We actually found out over beer at some point in the process that Qlik was the ratio of Qlik to data market was smaller than the ratio of IBM to Qlik at the time. So IBM is more times bigger than Qlik was more bigger than data market, and that comes with a whole lot of other things that are different in terms of scale. So some observations there. Number two, I will actually talk about efficiency. So it's amazing what a small group of people, so this is when we launched the product in the Nordic House here in 2010, and these are the people that built what I actually still believe was a world-class product and better than any other product that has still been made at solving the exact problem that we were solving. So you will see 5 people on stage, and this is actually the first day for Matt that's smiling there in the middle. So it was more or less 4 people that built this to the stage that we could actually take it to the market and we had something to sell. And it's not just about being small, it's also about being a young organization, not having any legacy, not having any customers, it helps a lot, and so on. So there are no things that are holding you back. And when you're together in a room with a small people with a shared vision, things can happen really, really fast. And it's actually one of my big pet peeves is the drop-off curve that happens as you try to scale up an organization. How infinitely more productive you are as 1, 2, 3, 4 people together in a room than you are when you have 40, 50 people working on a project. It's an amazing transformation that happens, however well you manage it, and nobody's cracked that still. And we actually never grew bigger than this. And I will throw it out there. Please track me down. We don't have time to cover it now. You will notice that there are no women on any of these pictures. That's another issue that I'm very fond of talking about. And please track me down if you have some. If you want to hear more about that. I think it's something that we as a startup culture have to change, but we don't have time to go into that here. The third thing I will mention is momentum. Once you as an organization have the engine going, it's actually, the momentum is high. You can screw things up, you can speed things up, but when it's going, and there are a lot of things that just keep going without thinking too much about it. I think the common saying here is that success hides a lot of mistakes or hides a lot of failure. I actually think that's the wrong characterization. So success allows you to do a lot of things. Many of them will be the wrong things, just as they are when you're small. But doing too many of the wrong things when you're small will actually kill you. But many of those things will be the right things. So for a startup, you have to almost make the right decision almost every time. For a bigger organization, you actually have the luxury of making mistakes, and the engine just keeps running. And I think that's one of the things that makes these bigger organizations so much better at executing, is that they have the luxury of being bigger. It's also about resources in general. So me being the entrepreneurial guy that I am, one of the ways I look at working for a larger organization is that in some ways it's actually like being an entrepreneur. What I do is very much about new products and what we're doing and so on. And it's almost like living with your VC, meaning that I now have daily talks with the people that lead the company, and they, I think, value my opinion somewhat. So you can pitch all sorts of ideas. You can pitch all sorts of things, and there are plenty of resources there. So it's almost like having a single VC. It's easier to get their money, but then again, you can't go anywhere else with your idea if they don't like it. So that's different. But the power that you get, the power that I get here is, I think I could probably more easily fund a bigger project within Qlik now than I could as an individual entrepreneur working in Iceland. So that's an interesting thing to have. The fourth and last thing is actually about delegation. So when you're working in a larger organization, it's actually hugely liberating when you realize that there are actually people that do all sorts of things. You're no longer alone in the marketing department, and you're no longer leading the sales organization and kind of doing all of these things. And I remember vividly that we were kind of leading up to the relaunch of Data Market as a service for Qlik. I engaged some people in the marketing organization, and then actually marketing was one of the things that it was a ball that I dropped. There were all sorts of things to do with the product, and we had to get it out for the branch out of the code, and there were all sorts of things that we had to work on, and I was doing sales enablement as well, and so on. And then like 3 days before, it's like, oh my God, we forgot marketing. So I call up this guy, and I was just about to call you. I wanted to share with you what I've been working on. So for the past month, for the past 4 weeks, he'd been doing videos, and he had the full slide deck ready, and it was way better than anything that I would ever create. And this just happened. So as you kind of learn to work the organization, you actually learn that you know the saying in the mobile market, there's an app for that. There's actually a department for that. So you just have to know where they are, and you have to know the people, and kind of then you can just throw the balls like this instead of kind of having to juggle all of them yourself. So these are 4 of my observations of for working for a larger organization. So just very quickly, scaling at scale is different. Young companies are incredibly efficient, young and small. And momentum gets you a long way, and there's a department for that. So these are my 4 observations here. What I will sum up, though, is that it's different. It is different, and that manifests itself in many ways. For example, there are certain people that work really well at startup companies that do not really aren't the right people for the corporate environment. Some people, that's not true of everybody, and some people are efficient at both, and both have their qualities. So that's kind of something that you have to kind of balance in the team and kind of understand that the dynamics are very different. Patience, for example, is a virtue when you are working for a larger organization, simply because it takes longer time. Because of the momentum, it takes longer time to shift things around and so on. So again, it is different, but there are definitely pros and cons to both. And this has been a hugely transformative experience, especially working as an Icelandic entrepreneur. And this is kind of the takeaway for you, to learn how an organization that's efficient at marketing and selling their product in an international market, how they actually work, and how much of a science that is, and not kind of a random thing or something that happens by accident, as I think we tend to think, because Iceland is so small and so kind of easy to get your message out here. So with that, I thank you.